I'm back. My name is Tom Russell. I'm your host for Life Without Limits. Good evening, and I'm hoping that the show that I have tonight is going to resonate with a lot of people who are struggling with the subject matter we're going to be talking about. But before we get into that and the introduction of my guest for tonight, I want to offer some things for people if they're interested in purchasing my book. My two books. One is the Finding Your True North: A Bullied Teen's Journey of Hope, or Nowhere Man. You can go to my website at lifewithoutlimits.com and just order it from there. Or if you are interested, you want to just drop me a message and send me an email about any insights or any advice or any comments. It doesn't really matter. And send it to my email, and I'd like to hear from you. And it would be nice to see if I'm having an impact on my audience here, and I really appreciate that. I really do. So, over the past 3 years, I've covered a wide variety of subjects, but I think one subject that seems to take prevalence over others is about drug or alcohol addiction. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, we discussed drug addiction with my amazing guest. He was an actor and a model named Richard G. Ozuna, and we talked about what he went through with his recovery. So tonight, we're going to delve into it again, but this time I want to dig a little deeper into the psyche of how someone who lived this idyllic life, but somehow she took a U-turn into drugs and had to find a way to climb out of it. And the story is not unlike so many others who enter that world, but what you really want to get out of tonight's show is from out of the shadows of an addiction that was so severe that she became numb to her surroundings, to someone who's found a way to leave that world to become a model citizen and a productive member of society. Her name is Anisa Berkey, and you've probably never heard of her, but I have. But it wasn't until I saw her life of addiction profile on a local television news program that I came to realize that everyone has a backstory that you're not really privy to. And what I saw that night was a profile of bravery and courage to just rip open the scars of her life to reveal that the flaws we all possess can be healed if we make that conscious and convicted decision to give up something that dominated and consumed every waking moment of her life. Hers is a profile of courage, not because she halted her drug addiction, but because she's willing to tell her raw story of survival to all of my audience. And my hope is that her words will strike a chord with those who have gone through and are still going through drug addiction. So, Anisa, I'm so proud and honored to have you on my show.
Thank you.
You doing okay?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, now, like I said before, we talked about your life, and I always talked about what I'm always interested in what people are going through in their lives when they start growing up. But I've often wondered what the catalyst for someone who's become addicted to drugs or alcohol, and and many times I think it's because of the horrendous childhood or something that they wanted to use drugs as an escape or alcohol. But your childhood was really good. You told me. What was your childhood like?
It was really normal, I guess, whatever anyone wants to like think normal is. But I grew up in a really small town. My parents still live in the house that we grew up in today. Like I never had to move. We had a very just stable and almost just as secure as it could get childhood. I was an athlete. I played sports. I got decent grades. It really didn't dawn on me until adulthood and actually focusing on my healing that there were some things that happened in my childhood that did kind of set the tone for codependency issues and some depression issues. And um, it's those things that looking back, I could see where they put kind of like cracks in my soul that I needed filled. So it's really easy for someone to be like, oh, my childhood was great because I wasn't abused. I wasn't beaten. I wasn't sexually abused because those things didn't happen to me. It was easy for me to sweep under the rug any other things that happened that did have that mark on me.
Did your parents ever warn you about using drugs?
No, no. The only drug education I got was a dare class in school. So I got coloring sheets and a that's how I learned what drugs were. And then even then it wasn't clear because I remember going to my uncle, like, and he smoked cigarettes and telling him that he used drugs. So obviously there was like something was lost in translation there. I didn't quite understand what they were trying to teach me.
Yeah, so it was a foreign subject matter for you. But you did tell me that when you were only 3, your aunt was murdered because of drugs. How did that affect you?
Yeah, so she was my absolute favorite aunt. And at 3 years old, you don't understand the concept of someone being murdered, let alone what it was about.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was older and started like, and no one even really sat me down to tell me or explain to me what happened. The stuff that I learned was, standing around the corner and eavesdropping on adults, hearing stuff that I shouldn't have been hearing, and then having to put those pieces together myself. But realizing that she was a cocaine addict and that her death was a result of the lifestyle that she was living. She was found in the trunk of a car and the car was set on fire.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and so her murder is still unsolved to this day. So as
Mm.
far as like being able to give you like solid answers and a solid story for her, I still can't do that. But in talking with like my mom, I actually got the nerve to sit down with my mom a couple of months back, and I was like, "Tell me about Aunt Kitty." I just remember like idolizing this woman at 3 years old. Like she babysat me. She lived with my grandparents. So when I would go to my grandparents' house, she was there. She she used to wear jeans so tight that she'd have to like lay down to zip them up. So here I am at 3 years old doing that with, my bibs and overalls just because I wanted to be like her so bad.
Yeah.
She was my favorite person in the whole world. And then one day she was gone. So I asked my mom, I'm like, tell me about her. Just what was she like? Were you friends with her? Like her and my dad were best friends, but I wanted my mom's point of view because still to this day you can tell that my aunt's murder is a very soft spot for my dad. And mom basically described how I remember feeling in my active addiction.
Hmm.
She said that she just was kind of out of it all the time. She never really socialized. She would just kind of be in and out doing her own thing in her own little world. And I remember that being me and kind of getting this sickening feeling as I was talking to my mom, like, wow, I repeated history.
Yeah, we're going to get into that shortly. Now, I got a question because we're going to talk about when you turned 21, when
Mm-hmm.
your whole world just fell apart. And having known about your aunt at 3 years old, and as you got older, I mean, was there a conscious thing when you started learning about drugs as you get older? Was it, well, my aunt died when I was 3 years old because of drugs? Did that kind of like turn you off towards that?
Not really. I think it happened so young and it was such a big chunk of my life that by the time I got to that point, I was kind of numb to it. She was
Hmm.
kind of in a spot in the back of my mind.
Hmm.
So
Okay, I wasn't sure because you never know because some of those things are good warnings. Now we got to get into the crux of this whole story is when you turn 21,
mhm.
some huge developments happened in life. What happened there?
I walked into a bar. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So when you're raised as sheltered as I was, and you don't, things like that kind of intrigue you. So as soon as I turned 21, it was just like when I turned 18 on my 18th birthday, I went and bought a pack of cigarettes just because I could. Like it was almost like when you're kept in this box for so long and then you get that little bit of, hey, I can do this now. So, I didn't even smoke cigarettes. I ended up throwing them away. I tried one and threw it away.
Hmm.
But just because I could do it, I went and
Yeah.
did it. Same thing as walking into a bar. Like the environment intrigued me because it's not anything that I was ever exposed to before. My parents aren't drinkers to this day. That wasn't an environment that I was ever exposed to. So instead of being scared of it, I was intrigued by it. It piqued something in me. So
But you went in there to drink. Were you going in there to take drugs, or was it?
no, No, I went in there with a girlfriend and ended up meeting like a whole different like array of people that I'd never been around before. So the same with the allure of walking into a bar, automatically was drawn to those people too. Like they were doing and saying things that I didn't really understand, but it looked cool. Like I was just intrigued. It was almost like a fly on the wall for a little bit, just kind of soaking it all in.
Do you think there was a peer pressure because once you get involved in that kind of situation, oh, just try this, and some people just get sucked into it. It sounds to me like you did, right?
I wouldn't really call it peer pressure with me. That is an issue for a lot of people, but for me, it wasn't. I was never really like, it was never forced upon me. Everything that I did on my own accord. Honestly, I started using because I didn't know how to control my anger. At that point in life, just everything kind of bottled up, and I was a very angry person, and I didn't know how to control that anger. And when I would get upset, I would do things that I shouldn't do, just kind of a way to either like numb myself, numb the pain, just try and like revert the anger into something else. And that's what got me high for the first time. Someone made me very upset, and I knew that it was something he didn't want me to do. So I went and I did it. But it only took that one time to get hooked.
Well, what did you end up taking?
Meth.
Meth?
Mm-hmm.
That's so. Was it somebody that you knew or somebody you hung around with, or?
It was a guy that I was seeing at the time, someone that
Mhm.
I'd met at the bar. I'd started dating him, and then it took like one just bad experience with him, and knowing that that was something he didn't really want me to do. That's why I say that peer pressure was never really a thing with me. So even though I was hanging out with these people and they were doing it, I was kind of like the baby of the group. They were all much, much older than me.
Yeah.
They kind of like protected and like shadowed over me for a little, like the first like few weeks, few months that I was involved in this crowd. And they didn't want me doing it. He didn't want me doing it. And it took one bad experience with him and getting my feelings hurt and just being very angry that I went to someone else. And I'm like, hey, get me high.
So you still saw the guy, right? He was a drug dealer, right? So, but you still decided to be with him even
Oh,
after that, right?
found out I was using. He's like, all right, well, I guess you're in now. And it was over with. Like, it was almost like that saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Well,
Yeah.
didn't really have a choice. I've kind of forced myself in.
Do you remember what the feeling was the very first time you took meth?
It was, uh, I feel so much guilt and shame saying this, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Because
All of a sudden, you feel like you could accomplish anything. It makes you a completely different person. Fears, insecurities that you have all of a sudden go out the window. You're brave, you have courage. Things that you keep your mouth shut about, you don't really want to stand up and say, all of a sudden you're standing up and saying. Things that you couldn't even imagine yourself doing sober, all of a sudden you have the courage to go do. um, and I liked that. And I was still in school. I was a nursing student. I was working at the hospital, so managing school, a home, a job. I could do all of it. And I was like, it gave me the illusion and almost brainwashed me into thinking I was perfect.
mhm. Now I'm kind of watching you because you're very honest and very authentic about this because a lot of people would say, because obviously you're not doing drugs anymore, but I mean the feeling of you, uh, I don't want to say endorse actually taking meth because I know you're not doing that, but to feel that you could be honest about this, it's amazing.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, those wonderful positive feelings did not last very long. So
Yeah, and that's pretty much the
that's
case.
very short lived.
Now everyone they have this right or wrong gene, okay, and then when they first start taking drugs or drinking, why was it so difficult for you to do what you knew was right by not taking drugs, and to actually start in the first place?
So I when it comes to alcohol, I can get the whole gene thing. I know a lot of people are predispositioned to be alcoholics. Honestly, I don't feel like, just because of the amount of addicts that I've worked with myself and based on my own experience, I don't feel like that really applies to addicts, because drug addicts, if you do something long enough, it alters the neural pathways in your brain and you will become addicted. It doesn't matter if you have that right or wrong gene.
Mm.
So, but I have seen that in a lot of alcoholics. So, I mean, even in the basis of recovery and the aspect of addiction, alcohol and drugs are one and the same, but there are a lot of differences, and that would be one that I would say that there is.
Now that makes sense. I've been reading up about addiction and what you just told me about the chemical reaction from all this. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've always wondered about this, and I asked you before in the pre-interview was, when you get involved with drugs and everything, I mean, I always thought it's too expensive for anybody to get drugs, but you said it was easy. It was easy to get drugs. Why is that?
It was so easy. Honestly, I just thinking back, like I personally have never paid for drugs.
Never.
Ever. So, a lot of that had to do in the beginning with dating a dealer and then becoming one of the dealers myself. It gets to the point where why would I go and spend my own money when I could learn how to produce this product that is in such high demand and get my high and make money on top of it? So what I was able to make and then keep for myself was only a fraction of what I had the opportunity to make money wise. So it was very profitable.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But
Right.
yeah, the thing is when because I always found this interesting when you told me this was, you know, and this is the whole idea about people get addicted to drugs. It's like a little you give someone a little carrot. Here's a carrot. Here's something, and
Yeah.
then you kind of suck them in because eventually they're going to say, okay, I like what that did for me.
Mm-hmm.
Bring on some more.
Yeah.
How are you able to do that and not care about the consequences?
Um, when you're dealing with someone who's just starting, and I mean, new faces, and you can tell,
Yeah.
um, there's a little bit of guilt there, just knowing like what you're bringing this person into. Now, when it would get to the point where it was like a repeat person who kept coming back and someone that I knew very, very well and knew, you know what, they are completely and obviously blind, pot calling the kettle black, blind to my own chaos, but uh, they're completely ruining their life. So I mean, if they don't care, I don't care. So now I'm giving them stuff to keep me safe, because when you're living that lifestyle and you're doing that kind of stuff, like there's the risk of being arrested, being set up, people robbing you, being killed for the stuff that you have. So you get to the point where you're giving these people who are so far gone free product because it's protection. Oh, you need something? Okay, come here. I will give you a little bit, because I know if you keep coming back and getting that little bit, you're going to keep your mouth shut, and I'm safe that way. Because you get to the point where you're always watching your back. Like you live almost in fear. Meth is a very mental drug, where an opiate or heroin would be a very physical dependency. Meth is a mental dependency. So, opiate addiction, your physical, your body is sick. Like you cannot physically get out of bed. The detox is just horrendous, and people have died from trying to get clean off heroin or opiates. But meth, it's a psychosis. You literally lose your mind.
And you obviously didn't know that going in when you first started taking it.
I knew nothing about it. I was so naive. I would go to these parties before I used for the first time and stay up for days with these people, just watching, having no idea what they were doing and like the paraphernalia they were using. I had no clue what was going on, but just staying up for days, hanging out naturally because I was still very intrigued.
How did it affect your health?
It wasn't good. It was not good at all.
Yeah.
still to this day fighting some of the repercussions from it.
Yeah, but this is, well, we'll get into that, but that's several years ago. How do you still feel that?
Well, we can talk about it later after we talk about how long I've been clean. I'll share
Yeah.
some things that I'm still going through.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll do that. Now, when you started, before you really started dealing with meth, how did you hide your addiction? Or did you even try?
I tried in the aspect that I would disappear for months. My family, so one of the hardest things, and to this day, I still choke up over this. I had been gone for maybe 2 or 3 months, gone as in no contact at all with my family.
Mm.
And Mother's Day came, and I called my mom. Hey, it's Mother's Day. I thought maybe you'd want to know that I was still alive.
Mm.
That was the phone call.
And what happened?
I don't remember.
Don't remember?
I don't remember the rest of the phone call.
Your mom does, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember not during the phone call, but in a conversation after, in a conversation with her, and her just saying, I never knew if we were going to find your body in a field somewhere.
Mm.
I never knew. I just never knew. And all I would do is just pray nonstop. Her and my grandma both have said that to me. We would just pray nonstop because we didn't know. And mind you, at the time, they didn't know that I was using. They thought, and I mean, not thought, I was in a very abusive relationship, but they thought that was the issue. They thought it was the man that I was with and that domestic abuse. They had no idea, no clue that drugs were involved. So it wasn't them fearing that they were going to find me dead in the field of an overdose or something like that. It would have been at his hands that they were so worried about. So my mom said she spent many nights on her knees, many nights on her knees.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering. I mean, eventually, I don't know exactly at what point your parents knew that you were doing drugs, but did you feel guilt when you finally let them know?
So they didn't find out till after I was arrested.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to get into that yet because we got too much to cover here.
Wait. No,
yeah.
did not know. They didn't know the entire time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you also told me that you were selling to high-profile people like doctors and other professional people.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? How'd that make you feel?
It almost felt like, so when I first started using, and you have that, like, the intrigue that goes with it, after a while, like, that, it just becomes daily life. But then it feels very isolating. Like, this is my life now. Like, I'm some kind of trash human. I'm living like this. And then all of a sudden you're dealing with high profile people and you're like, huh, this is probably a little bit more normal than I'm giving myself credit for. It was almost like, if they can do it, that's my free pass to keep going. Because if they can do it and manage their lives, why can't I? And it almost gave me a very prideful superwoman complex. I'm not going to get caught. I'm not going to get arrested. Look at them. They're doing it. So, yeah.
I just I know it happens. I know that the drug addiction is it runs across the board in all different kinds of careers. I understand that, but I've never talked to anyone who's been on the other end of it. I've always talked to somebody who's either taking drugs or come off drugs and things like that. One thing that I was kind of wondering about this and how you dealt with this. You told me that you were selling drugs to a parent or parents, and they came in and they left their kids in the car. Did that bother you at the time?
It did. I've always had a very soft spot for kids, so that would bother me. They would come up, and obviously customers always want to sample product before they leave. And when you're using a drug like meth, you lose time. You lose chunks of time Like literally hours would go by and you wouldn't even really realize it. But when you're in the situation where you're the one supplying that, you almost get irritated with the people. Like, get in and get what you need and get out. And um knowing that there was kids down in a vehicle, it's almost like, are you gonna leave? Go get your kids. You can put them to bed in my bed in the other room. Just, why are you leaving them down there? There's just so many, like, you care for the children, but then you also care for yourself, because what if your neighbors across the street see that there's kids in this car for hours and they call the police? I mean, it's such a complex, just field of emotions, because your paranoia starts kicking in, that you want to be protective of them, but then you also want to protect yourself, but then you want to protect the customer because you need them to keep coming back. It's you're walking a tightrope nonstop.
And yet that didn't stop you from continuing what you're doing then, right? Nope.
I had to keep going. I had to.
Why'd you have to? Because it was just your way of life?
I was so far in, yeah. Like, it's all I knew. It was either die or go to jail. Those were my ways out. I didn't
And
feel like I didn't have enough personal strength to go to a family member or a trusted adultier adult and be like, hey, I have a problem. At that point in time, I didn't really think I had a problem. B, the benefits were still outweighing the bad stuff that was going on. I just,
I know it's a tough question. I know it is. I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable spot.
no, it's good, because it's helping me process some of this stuff. Like, why did you do it? Because a lot of the times, like, you block it out. Sometimes it would get so bad that you just numb yourself to it and keep going, because it's all you knew. You're trapped.
So when did things start crashing down on you?
So when I would say we, I'm referring to the guy that I was with. We switched from dealing to manufacturing. So learning how to make it, I feel like, because you become just as addicted to the process of making the drug as you are consuming the drug. You get so wrapped up in trying to perfect recipes and trying to make the best out there, so people keep coming back. You get so caught up in trying to find the supplies to make it, recruiting people to go to pharmacies to buy medications for you to make it with, buying prescriptions off people to make it with. Indiana has databases. Every time you go to a pharmacy and you purchase either Sudafed or some of the other ingredients to produce it, you're put in a log. So obviously, I don't want my name. I mean, the book would be this thick if it was me.
Yeah.
So you're spinning your wheels trying to, like, recruit people and find people to go to bounce to all these pharmacies, and you're giving them free drugs for doing it for you, and you're almost like running a full-time business. You have to have a business mindset to be able to make that happen, and you become just as addicted to that, and you get a rush off that. There were days where I would go with, like, days without even getting high, because I was so caught up in spinning my wheels and trying to make this stuff happen.
So
You didn't have time to sit and get high yourself.
So you eventually got arrested. What happened there?
So I was running with a very large circle of people, and we were not me, we as in me, but they were starting to basically get picked off. People were getting set up and going to jail. People were getting very paranoid. And when you live in constant paranoia, it's not a good environment, especially when it's a couple that's working together. And out of our entire group that ran together, I wasn't set up. How my ex and I got arrested is so stupid, and to this day makes me so mad. I almost wish I got set up, but we would get in these horrible, horrible, horrible knockdown, drag out fights just awful. Like, he was just a very, very violent man. And it got to the point where I was just so numb from using and from the lifestyle we were living that I was fighting back. So it was horrible, horrible fights. And the neighbors got sick of hearing it and called the police. Well, we saw him coming, so we, hurry up, clean, put stuff away, and we had forgot when we opened the door to kick one pipe.
Oh,
one pipe
wow.
under the couch.
Yeah.
It was underneath the coffee table, and we missed it. We didn't see it, and it wasn't kicked under the couch. And the police saw that when we opened the door, and it was grounds to search our apartment. So they found all kinds of goodies then. So it was crazy. So I went from having this like a horrible, violent altercation with the guy I was with to sitting downstairs on the sidewalk in a pair of not so pretty silver bracelets.
Yeah.
Just thinking, how did I get here? They ended up finding 6 one-pot meth labs in our freezer. We had weight on us. So I have a dealing charge and I have a manufacturing charge under my name. Maintaining a common nuisance, which is basically like you live in a trap house, people come to your house to buy dope. So those are and then paraphernalia, that one ended up getting dropped though. But the night I got booked, I had 22 years over my head.
22 years over your head.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened with the jail sentence then?
I spent 6 months in county, and well, this is how my parents find out. We'll backtrack to that a little bit.
Yeah.
The first phone call you get, I called my best friend, who was also a partner. Call her.
Yeah.
And yeah, told her, hey, we got arrested. She's like, I know, word travels fast. And she's like, what do you need? And I said, someone needs to call my parents. So she did. Her being an addict and a dealer herself swallowed her fear, and she called my mom and dad and told them where I was.
Why did you decide not to call your parents, and your guilt? Or
I'm scared to death.
Yeah.
It was like as soon as I was in the back of the cop car, like old Anissa came back real quick. Like I snapped back to 19-year-old Anissa that had like her life together. Instant, like, just, okay, yes ma'am, no ma'am, tell me what direction to go. Yes, I will wear this. Yes, I will sit here and be quiet. It was just, I snapped back to who I was supposed to be, and it snapped all the way back to I am in so much trouble when my parents find out. And yeah, it was really weird. It's like a switch flipped in my mind the moment that they put handcuffs on me and put me in the back of a cop car.
So you got 6 months in jail, but I assume you got probation, right, after that, or?
Oh, so I spent 6 months in county, and it took 6 months for me to be sentenced. So I sat there waiting for a judge to tell me my fate. So I got arrested in July. January, I went to court, and I was given a 10-year sentence. So they ended up suspending 4 of the years. So in Indiana back then, so long ago, they still had the 50% rule. So I have a 10-year sentence. They suspended 4 years. That left me 6. It was a 6-3. So I had to go downstate to prison and serve the rest of my 3 years. The 4 years that were suspended when I got out, I did on probation. So I went downstate. I did a total of 2 years. I went downstate and I did time cuts. I did like some office administration classes, and then I did the rehab program, and that gave me a total of 9 months off. And then I modified to house arrest, and then my form.
So let's talk about the rehab then, because you went to rehab while you were there.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were obligated to do that, or you actually wanted to say enough is enough?
At that point in time, I had pretty much dried out. So I had 6 months in county, and then I had 6 months in actual prison before I even got allowed to step foot onto the rehab dorm. So I had almost a year where I had dried out. My mind, had started healing itself a little bit. So it wasn't really like I need to do this because I'm an addict. It was, I need to do this because I need that 6 months taken off my sentence because I want to go home. So.
But it wasn't, because we always talk about, I can't I can't pronounce the word very, recidivism or something like that. I can't say, where you end up going back basically.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me you didn't want to do that. Now, in talking about this is like, I don't want to stay in here. I don't want to go back. Is it the fact that you said I'm not going to do drugs anymore because of that, or just the fact you just want to get out?
At that point in time, because I had dried out for a year, I was feeling more like myself, and I was away from my ex, the crowd. And I knew I was going back home to mom and dad. I thought I was going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, I was removed from that situation, and I'm going to go do this rehab program because it's going to give me a time cut. But regardless, when I get home, I'm good. It wasn't until going through the program, learning what addiction was, learning what kind of mental health and emotional disorders that people have that lead up to addiction. I had no clue that I was a codependent. I am a raging codependent.
Yeah.
I learned that while I was there. Just learning that kind of stuff and going through that program, that's what taught me. That's what taught me, hey, you needed this. You needed to be here. You have a problem. So, yeah.
So is you you got out of rehab and out of the jail and everything, but you ended up marrying an addict, which I find very fascinating. But you stayed with him for 8 years. How did you get sucked into that again and not get involved with drugs again?
So when I came out, like I was saying, like I knew I still had that kind of mindset, even though I realized, yes, I'm an addict. Yes, I had a problem. Going through that rehab program, I had made a lot of phone calls home where I had confessed a lot of stuff to my parents and just a lot of stuff that I was dealing with, and just some childhood traumas that I needed to get out. And just I had a lot of emotional healing with them, but there was still a lot of that guilt and that shame. So when I came home, I came home in July. I came home on house arrest, and I was on house arrest till October. So just being at home and kind of like, my mom is like your typical like mother hen. I had helicopter parents for that time I was on house arrest. But seeing that I caused her to be like that, and I caused that fear and traumatized her, I slipped back into my codependency because all of a sudden I took it upon myself. It was my responsibility to fix mom. I owed that to her. I ruined mom. I have to fix this now because what I did, it broke her. Mom's my soft spot. I broke her.
Yeah.
So seeing that firsthand and being stuck at home on house arrest, so that is in my face 24/7, I did that to her. As soon as I was out, it's almost like I had something to prove. I needed to do everything that I could to show that I was improving, almost like it's my time for redemption. And I got off house arrest in October and met my ex-husband November, just a few weeks later. And it was very whirlwind. And we were married. We met in November, engaged in February, and we were married the next September. So not even a year of knowing him. Not enough time to know if someone has a secret addiction. So did I willingly marry an addict? No, I did not know.
Right.
But my own codependency issues and trying to show my mom and dad and the rest of the world that I was better forced me to like, okay, I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a little house. We're going to have kids. Everything's going to be great. Now everyone's going to be proud of me for once. So that's kind of what sparked that. He was not a heroin addict at the time, but he did use pills a little too excessively. But in my mind, that's a prescription from a doctor. It was okay. I had already started that codependency tendency of justifying what he was doing. And Indiana passed the law where you couldn't get your pain meds as freely because he had major back surgery. And, he couldn't get his pain meds anymore, and he ended up turning to the streets, and he hid the fact that he was shooting dope for about 3 years. from me. I found out by finding him overdosed in our bathroom, and I couldn't get to him. The bathroom door was locked.
But I mean, you've been through that. You've seen people and going through a drug addiction. I would assume at some point you felt like
I carried a lot of guilt because of all people. I'm like, I should have known. But looking back now, meth and heroin are two completely different demons.
Yeah.
And I give myself a little bit of grace now for not realizing what was going on. That, and when you're in active addiction, seeing it, like having the tables turned on me and seeing it, addicts are very manipulative. If they want to get away with something, they will get away with something. And I got a taste of my own medicine.
Yeah.
I had no clue. So yeah, one morning I had heard him hit the floor in the bathroom, and it was an overdose.
Did he survive?
He survived about all 8 overdoses.
8? You mean you stayed with him for all those 8 overdoses?
Yeah.
Wow. That is codependency,
Raging codependency.
That is huge.
Awful.
So you've been sober for 12 years now. Do you ever think, 12 plus now, do you ever think that you wasted those several years of your life doing drugs?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I spent my 20s either high or locked up, and my 30s in the prison of being married to an addict. I feel like I've wasted my entire life. The most worthwhile year of my life, I feel right now, has been the last year.
Mm.
So finally getting free of that marriage last October and spending this last year alone and learning who Anissa is finally has been the most eye-opening and just most rewarding year. And I finally feel like at 38 years old, I have my life together almost, kind of. Probably not, but a lot better than it was.
Dear, you've got a long way to go. I'm telling you, you got a long way to go, and you're on the right track. And I think the biggest thing, Anissa, is, and I've heard this before through rehab and all this sort of stuff, is not to focus on the past, and you got to really attend to yourself for the future. Be in the present now. And I think a lot of people forget that, and they focus. Well, this, like you said, you spent 12 years now. You wasted several years just in a fog.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't change it,
No,
So,
the only thing I could change is me.
Yeah.
And getting my codependency in check and actually being able to say, you know what you're doing is on you. It's not on me anymore. And whatever it takes to get you clean, you need to go figure that out. Because everything that I'm doing, me killing myself for you on a daily basis, wanting your sobriety more than you want it, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I can't. If you want to kill yourself, go. But I can't let you take me with you. Let you take me. I can't. And finally having the courage to walk away was the scariest, most terrifying thing of my life, but it's been the most rewarding and the most worth it.
So when you wake up in the morning, what gives you happiness now?
I struggle with that because I'm still in the stage of learning who I am. But if I really had to think about it, lately, the news story that I did last month and doing that, doing this call tonight, I just want to see people get better. And even if it's not an addict, knowing that there's women out there who are stuck in relationships like what I was in, whether it's the abusive one or the one where they're married to an addict and they feel stuck. That was my biggest thing. I was like, I can't divorce him. I can't live on my own financially. I can't take care of myself. He did everything for me. I was a very spoiled wife, addict or not. So I was terrified to do things on my own. If I could go out there and just show women that you can do it on your own, I think that fires me up. Doing stuff like this fires me up. I love it.
Yeah, I think, in talking with you, Anissa, I brought this up already, is you're talking about things in your life when you were dealing and being involved with drugs as if it was a nirvana. It was something that was just, it was the best things that ever happened to you, which I know is not true. But for those people listening to the show and those people watching my show on YouTube, And I know Anissa enough that she's the kind of person who wants to help other people not go down that same road by being honest. And being honest as to who she was. And being honest the way she is now is the way she is now. And I don't want to, and she doesn't want to offend anybody. I'm talking for you now, Anissa. She doesn't want to offend anybody saying that it was a kind of life that was I can't think of the word, but basically it's a life that people gravitate towards because of what you said about it. You're in a different world. All your worries are gone and everything like that. But then when you come down off that high, you're back to where you were before.
Absolutely. That whole like just pink cloud does not last. Like maybe a couple months. And by that time, you're so addicted and trapped in the lifestyle, you can't get out and you're miserable. I remember laying on the bathroom floor with a pipe in my hand and a bag in the other, crying, almost hysterical, because I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to stop. And I remember that day was one of the first times I had prayed in years. Just, I can't do this anymore. Make it stop. And a week later, I was arrested.
Yep. So. Well, maybe it was a blessing in disguise, although he didn't think of that at the time, obviously.
Didn't feel like it at the time at all. That started a whole other set of misery. So yeah, it's not worth it. It seems like worth it, but it's a trick. It's not.
It is.
It's a trick.
So if anybody is interested in reaching out to you, how could they reach out to you, Anissa?
So I changed my Facebook profile to public. So I will receive any messages in my messenger. So all someone has to, if they want to talk to me personally, all someone has to do is just shoot me a message on social media. I have all of my platforms open. If you don't want to reach out to me personally, I do here have the number for the national hotline. This hotline was a godsend for me when I was trying to find help for my husband. They will find a treatment center. They will help with insurance. They do all kinds of things. So I have that available.
Yeah, go ahead and say the number.
It is 1-800-662-4357, and it's for SAMHSA. It's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And also, her name is Anissa, Anisa. Last name is Berkey, Berkey. So if you look her up on Facebook and want to talk to her, that's great. I always end my shows with the things I found on Pinterest, and in this case, we're talking about drug addiction. Here's the first one I read. You gave me such pleasure. This is talking about drugs. You gave me such pleasure, but it came at a bigger cost. My family, friends, and dreams, all this I have lost. Once you had your grasp in me, there was no way I could break free. Dirty deeds and dirty tricks, all they would do to get my next fix. So many things I now regret. My biggest regret is the day we met. I had such aspirations and dreams to pursue. Now to get high is all that I want to do. The next one is, you can't keep dancing with the devil and ask why you're still in hell. Recovery didn't open the gates of heaven and let me in. Recovery opened the gates of hell and let me out. And here's the last one. I think this is real important. To the addict haters. I know that addiction is hard for you to understand. It was hard for me to understand too, and I suffer from it. I know you think addiction isn't a disease, it's a choice. What if I told you that you made the same choice? Are you confused? Well, you were a teen. When you were a teen, did you ever smoke pot, have a drink, drop acid, or snort a line? Even just once, because if you did, you made the same choice. The only difference is you were lucky you were able to stop. A person with the disease isn't. People with the disease of addiction have a disorder. Endorphins are a chemical produced by the brain. It is what makes us feel pleasure. It also provides an overall feeling of well-being. The average person has a level of 80, which ensures that they are motivated, happy, and basically content. Those that suffer from addiction have an average of 40, so when they use, their levels for the first time are normal or above. The brain naturally seeks more, and addiction affects the part of the brain that tells you that you're hungry. Go eat, your primal needs. If you have the disease of addiction, your brain sends itself messages just to use. Urgent messages, like it would be to get you to eat if you were starving. So, hey, thanks again for coming on my show. I think I've gone over here, but Anissa, you are you are so courageous to talk about this, and it had to be uncomfortable, but you were awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, as I end all my shows, I want everyone to smile infectiously, laugh genuinely, love unconditionally, live courageously. I believe in all of you. Have a great week.